Download the free app now.
Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. 6 weeks of wild accusations. A former A-list couple going public with every private, shocking detail of their lives together. Now, all the evidence is in and the arguments have been made, and it's up to 7 citizens from Fairfax County, Virginia, to determine who is telling the truth.
There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp.
If you believe that Depp was abusive to Amber one time ever, in any of the various forms of abuse, then your job is very easy.
Tonight, we break down the arguments and evidence with our experts to try to make some sense of this volatile relationship and bitter court battle.
Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband. The scene was a setup.
You know that the evidence that you've seen constitutes all sorts of abuse, and there's a reason that they're running as fast as they can.
We're live in Fairfax County at the courthouse with all the latest as the world waits for the jury to speak and render its verdict in Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight. What a day, what a night, what a week, what a trial. And here we are waiting for a verdict. Let me start here tonight. You know, when it's time to name a TV show, you're going to start a new show, and it's time to name your show, you want to come up with a name that is significant and really a name that is important. And the name of this show is Closing Arguments. And one of the reasons it's named Closing Arguments is because we cover trials. And wow, closing arguments are really important. This is, I mean, for me, when I was trying cases, this is where I started, right? So you get a case, you get the file, you know you're going to trial. First thing I would do, put together an outline of what I wanted my closing argument to be. And start with the opening statement. You start with the closing argument. Where do I want to end up? What is the evidence that I want lined up? What are the arguments I want to make to this jury? How am I going to put it together for them? How am I going to spoon feed them my case so I can win? And I would start there and then move backwards, line up the evidence, the witnesses that I needed, and then figure out, okay, how am I going to open things up? But it's the closing arguments, the closing. You've got to close that deal with the jury. For lawyers, and for the lawyers in this case, this was really their "a star is born" moment. And we heard that term throughout the trial, right? For actors, you know, you have that big role, whatever it is. You know, for Amber Heard, it was supposed to be Aquaman. This is the "star is born" moment. The moment you come out, the world recognizes you, and from that point forward, you are known, right? Well, for the lawyers making their closing arguments today, think about it. This is a huge trial. Huge trial, big moment. A lot of people watching. Most importantly, of course, the 7 jurors who will be making that decision, but so is everyone else. This is your opportunity to make a difference and to demonstrate who you are. And today, stars were born. Let's begin with Camille Vasquez. I mean, she brought it today. I mean, cross-examination was great, and she brought that same intensity to the closing argument. And what really struck me about her closing argument was the organization, the thought that went into it, and the way that she was able to tie the arguments to the evidence and play that evidence for the jury. You know, it's one thing to stand in front of a jury and say, yeah, do you remember when this happened or when that happened? It's so much more powerful when you set it up and then the jury experiences that moment with you in the courtroom, especially after a 6-week trial. You've got to remind everybody about everything. And she did it so well with that edge. She brings that edge into the courtroom. And that's the edge of someone that you know is fighting for you, someone that believes in you. And you want the jury to get that. You want the jury to understand that. There was a second star. There was a second star. The other attorneys are great. I'm talking about the two breakout stars from my perspective today. That was Benjamin Rottenborn, Johnny Depp's arch nemesis, right? And his approach is much different. I mean, there's a soothing, mild mannerness to it, and then he'll turn it up a notch. But not like me. He's way different than me. But he's got his own style, his own demeanor, which brings such a level of calmness and credibility, which is important. We talk about credibility of witnesses. Well, there's a credibility that the attorneys need. Ultimately, we're the folks trying to sell the case to the jury. So you need that credibility. And sometimes that can just ooze through your personality, your demeanor, your delivery. And he made amazing legal arguments as well. Amber Heard may need those legal arguments. But both, I mean, all the attorneys did great jobs. But these two, for me, really were shining through today. So, Benjamin Rottenborn killed it, Camille Vasquez brought it, and the jury got to see it. Take a look.
The evidence presented at this trial has shown that Ms. Heard is in fact the abuser, and Mr. Depp the abused. As you heard from Mr. Depp and multiple other witnesses that testified under oath at this trial, Mr. Depp experienced persistent verbal, physical, and emotional abuse by Ms. Heard during their relationship. And when their relationship was over, Ms. Heard inflicted the greatest and cruelest injury of all. She publicly and falsely named Mr. Depp as the abuser. Ms. Heard never thought she would be held accountable, never thought that she would have to face her abuser. She never thought she would have her supposed mountain of evidence vetted. She never thought that Mr. Depp would tell you, the jury, and the world that he was the real victim of domestic abuse. She said it in her own words.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and yes. It's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
The evidence presented at this trial demonstrates that Ms. Heard didn't just want a divorce. She wanted to ruin him. Ms. Heard denied alerting TMZ to the TRO filing in this courtroom. But you heard testimony from Morgan Tremaine that TMZ knew to go to the courthouse, knew what side of her face the alleged bruise was on, and that Ms. Heard would pause. She would pause for paparazzi, who got the photos that ended up splashed across newspapers and magazines. Ms. Heard testified that she did not personally give photographs of her apparent injuries to People magazine. But somehow, these pictures that she took and maintained on her devices ended up on the cover of People magazine 1 month later. It was an act of profound cruelty, not just to Mr. Depp, but to true survivors of domestic abuse. For Ms. Heard to hold herself out as a public figure representing domestic abuse. It was false, it was defamatory, and it caused irreparable harm.
Mr. Depp knows that he can turn into a monster. He knows that. He knows that. He got up here on the stand and tried to deny that to you. Talk about lack of accountability. Let's see the monster. Let's see the monster in the flesh.
Happened. What happened? Nothing happened this morning, you know that?
You didn't hear?
No.
So then nothing happened to you this morning?
Yeah, you're right. I just woke up and you were so sweet and nice. We were not even fighting this morning. All I did was say sorry.
Did something happen to you this morning? I don't think so.
This is Mr. Depp passed out in a Tokyo hotel room during the press tour for The Lone Ranger in 2013. When Ms. Heard testified that Mr. Depp screamed at me, and all I could think were the kids are in an adjoining room. And Mr. Depp passed out with his head like this. I don't think he was sleeping on the floor because he had a bad back. They keep referring to these pictures as she took pictures of Mr. Depp while he was asleep. He's not asleep in that picture. He's passed out, drunk and high, and she's taking pictures because she wants him to realize what he's done and get help and seek help. That's Mr. Depp on the plane, but he expects you to believe him that he didn't have anything to drink on that plane except for maybe one thing of champagne. That's what he expects you to believe. He's talked about blackouts. These blackouts where he doesn't remember what happened. He blamed them only on opiates, but we know they happen throughout, where he doesn't remember what's happened. As you're weighing the evidence, as you're assessing whether Mr. Depp has borne his burden of proof, think to yourself, do you believe Amber's account of what happened on the plane, or do you believe that person's account that you just heard?
Incredibly powerful use of the actual evidence in the case during closing arguments. You don't always see that. Well done by both. Not going to be an easy job for this jury. Hey, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Shanley Painter, who is with me outside the courthouse here in Fairfax County, Virginia. What a day.
What a day.
What a week. What a trial.
Yes.
Let's start with the jury today, listening to these incredible arguments.
Well, this jury, now that we've lost two, I think we have a graphic to update our viewers on who the 7 deliberating jurors are. And we lost a couple of jurors, Vinnie, that were reacting to some of this testimony that would maybe show a smile or a laugh at times. But here's what they look like. I know you got to see them at the end of the day.
Yeah, they were ready to leave. They were ready to leave at the end of the day. They skedaddled pretty quick once the judge dismissed them. But
right.
yeah, again, it strikes me how young. You've got 4 very young jurors, you know, in juror age, because we're used to seeing jurors that are a little bit older. It's just the way it is. Juries are skew older, but not this one.
For 6 weeks of their life to commit. That is unusual to see. But so the jurors, they were attentive, of course. And as you mentioned, Camille Vasquez. All eyes on Camille Vasquez as she approached the podium this morning for closings, and she had some smiles from the jurors greeting them before she started. They were glued in to her close as she started off with this theme of 6 years ago today, Vinnie.
That's amazing, right?
That was
it was 6 years ago today.
A consistent theme, and that seemed to resonate, of course, with the jurors. And now, occasional notes, but most of them were not taking any notes at all during any of the closing arguments, which I thought was interesting, except the one that's now an alternate. And then when she would use the visual aids, you know, the photos that they crossed Amber Heard with, where no injuries are apparently shown near or around these alleged incidents of abuse, there were jurors who actually would lean in. Juror number 3 leaned into this photo. He really studied it. And I don't see any usual reaction from that particular juror. So that was an interesting moment. And, of course, Rottenborn. Very effective as well. He really did have those jurors glued in. When he started, he like lowered his voice a little bit at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of framed the narrative as Johnny Depp, this abuser. Let's note this moment because juror number 9 actually looked towards Johnny Depp when he, Rottenborn, said this.
If Amber was abused by Mr. Depp even one time, then she wins. One time. And we're not just talking about physical abuse. We're talking about emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse. That's what we're talking about.
And again, even with Rottenborn, Vinnie, not a lot of notes being taken. They were attentive and not any signs of being tired. I mean, it was a marathon day of closings, but I also want to show you one more moment. This was during Camille's rebuttal close. It was particularly powerful. Let's watch.
Given how brutal and constant the abuse Miss Heard claims, she would have had serious injuries. That's a fact. She would have had serious injuries that would have been observable in the pictures we looked at and by the witnesses we heard from, and would have required medical attention. That's it. Ms. Heard testifies to injuries that multiple people didn't see. What you have in the end is Ms. Heard's word. Do you trust it?
Do you trust it, Vinnie? And then she paused. Nobody broke eye contact with her on the jury panel.
Wow. And the way both were framing it, so important, because Amber Heard's side is saying, just one time, but it's not just physical abuse.
Right.
But I don't know how the jury's going to interpret that. I mean, if they go along with him with that argument, which they're entitled to, it's difficult because the relationship was so volatile back and forth, right? And Johnny Depp's team focusing on physical abuse and the sexual abuse, the physical stuff that is happening, and they're focusing in on Amber Heard. Can you really trust her? And if you can make this into a referendum on do you trust Amber Heard, that's the road to victory for them.
Absolutely.
It really is. Any other big takeaways from today?
Okay, first thing I noticed walking into the courtroom, the gallery's jam-packed, per usual, Vinnie, but today they were actually silent. It was like they were scared to even move after the judge admonished them yesterday for the outburst. So the deputies had that gallery under control, but there was a row reserved for Johnny Depp, or there was one on Amber's side too, for anyone who wanted to show up who was a friend or a supporter of Johnny Depp personally, and his row was full of people who hadn't been there the entire trial. I thought that was a strong statement for that side of the room to show that he had some friends and family there supporting him for closings. Also, of course, I have my eyes on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Johnny Depp does not like Ben Rottenborn at all. It is so clear when Ben Rottenborn was making the final arguments, Johnny Depp could not, I mean, he had to be calmed down several times. This is a moment where Rottenborn is calling him, you guys know him as America's favorite pirate. But this is the real Johnny Depp, the vile, the violent. Look at him, looking up at Rottenborn, raises his eyebrow. That was consistent throughout Rottenborn's closing. Of course.
And I think that's significant because that's what this trial is about for Johnny Depp. It's about his name, his reputation, how he is seen by his fans and the public. And that is a direct attack, just like Amber Heard, a direct attack. That's a direct attack in Johnny Depp's eyes.
Absolutely. And he doesn't even want any money. He's like, this isn't about money, according to Ben Chu. But also, Amber Heard wanted to react as well. There was a moment that I caught her really reacting when, on rebuttal, Camille Vasquez was comparing the really vicious and vile text messages, the language that Johnny Depp would use in text messages and call it, look at her. She referenced it, oh, he was influenced by the literary greats of, you know, Hunter S. Thompson and some of the names. That was Amber's reaction. And she was passing quite a few notes to Rottenborn. Look at her.
Yeah, she was very active today in the way she was reacting to everything as well. It was fascinating to watch because sometimes during closing arguments, you don't get that. You do get that. And remember, they're in full view of the jury. But the jury, I think, really focused on the attorneys today. But if any of them from time to time are glancing over, they're going to see a lot and saw a lot today from Amber Heard and from Johnny Depp. What a day. All right. Chanley Painter is going to stick around. When we come back, folks, we're going to talk more about the reactions and the demeanor inside that courtroom. We're going to bring in our experts, add to the conversation, get some insight. What do some of these body language movements by the parties mean? Those facial expressions? What's going on in their minds? All of that next.
money app that works for you.
You want to see crazy? I'll give you That's crazy. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're crazy.
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this going? You got this going?
I just started it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really? See, that's
No, I didn't. You were smashed.
Bye.
Do you see Miss Heard laughing in that? She's not laughing in that. Mr. Depp in this courtroom right now is laughing and making snide remarks as that video is being played, but it's not a laughing matter.
When I heard that, I had a major flashback to Orlando, Florida. Remember Jose Baez pointing out Jeff Ashton in that trial involving the death of Kaylee Marie Anthony? He called him that laughing man in front of the jury. It was effective down there. We'll see how this plays in front of this jury. Taking a look right now at some of the reactions from Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, the attorneys, everyone in the courtroom during these closing arguments. Let's bring in the rest of our guests joining us tonight, folks. In Los Angeles, California, Dr. Judy Ho, clinical and forensic neuropsychologist, associate professor, Pepperdine University. Also with us in L.A., Dr. Carol Lieberman, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, and columnist. And in the aforementioned Orlando, Florida, we spent a lot of time together down there, Susan Constantine, jury consultant, human behavior expert. Great to see you. Okay, Susan, I'll begin with you, since it was a flashback moment for me. Taking a look at Johnny Depp, laughing, watching the Mega Pint video, your thoughts about his reaction?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to mention to you that I was in the courtroom when Jeff Ashton did that. So I remember that moment. The second thing is that when I'm watching him, what he does is when he feels like he's under attack, he naturally smiles. He's a way for him to kind of blow off the steam, to blow off the anxiety. So he does that quite often. But there's also another part of that. He is a little snickering. He does it. It's a way for him to kind of fight back, to throw a little smirk in there, to kind of tell them that you're full of you know what. And that's what he does. And he does it often. I'm not so sure that works for him.
Yeah. Let's take a look now. We've got Johnny Depp and his legal team here during Elaine Bredehoff's closing argument. Take a look at them because, you know, the way they're reacting here. Dr. Judy Ho, I'll begin with you. Your thoughts about the jury. Do you think they're going to pick up on some of this? And what is going through the minds of Johnny Depp and his team as they listen to the arguments of the other side talking about how Johnny Depp and his attorney allegedly defamed Amber Heard?
Well, absolutely. The jury is watching Amber and Johnny's reactions to everything. There is no moment that isn't being captured. And people make very snap judgments. And when we see these emotional reactions, on the one hand, maybe we can say, well, they're human, so they're reacting this way, they're frowning, they're maybe snickering, they're reacting negatively because negative things are being said about Johnny. But at the same time, it's odd, you know, even if we were put in the same position, might not be perfect in our conduct, we do kind of expect that of celebrities especially. We expect other people to somehow have perfect conduct, whatever that means, because it really isn't actually a specific standard. I just think that people are just gonna look at this and say, we don't like that. And the minute that you have a negative emotional reaction, it doesn't even matter if it's explainable in any way. It doesn't matter if it's logical. We are going to make decisions based on emotions. And I know that juries are given jury instructions. They will probably do their best. But what about that subconscious part of them that reacted to an emotional reaction from Johnny? And that just sticks in their mind. And it's just hard for them to go against that.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, we saw a lot from Amber Heard today. I want to take a look as she's listening to Camille Vasquez's rebuttal here, talking kind of about the concept of you either believe everything she said or you believe nothing. Your thoughts about Amber Heard and her reaction and this dynamic between her and Camille Vasquez?
Well, Amber Heard today was a little bit more self-confident, it seemed, because she had her two main lawyers, really speaking out for her, in a long narrative. But, the idea of you either believe everything or nothing, I mean, that's kind of a dangerous idea, because I think at this point, most people don't, but they've shown, I mean, it has been amazing how they have shown, broken down her lies one by one, having people testify who Amber's side could not have, and Amber could not have expected to testify. The Hicksville manager, Kate Moss, of course, the TMZ employee. I mean, all of these people who testified, maybe not the Hicksville manager, he wasn't under any kind of threat, but Kate Moss, she doesn't need her 15 minutes of fame. The TMZ man, I mean, he could well be sued by TMZ. We saw what happened when they came into court. So I think that they were very surprised that there were these people, a whole list of people who were there, who were abutting what she had to say. And so, I mean, isn't it like if they don't believe one thing that she says, then shouldn't they be disregarding everything that she says? I think that's the major point.
And that's exactly what Camille Vasquez was arguing. And if they buy into that, that could be the road to victory. Susan Constantine, take a look here. More of Amber Heard and her team reacting. This is Benjamin Chew during his closing argument, and talking about Kate Moss testifying that Johnny never abused her. Let's take a look and see how they react here. And again, we really saw a lot more today in terms of different looks and different expressions. There's a big smile there on the face.
Yeah, she thought that was a big win for her. I can't hear the sound right here, but she's looking back. She's looking to see if other people are connecting with her. Do you agree with me? Did you hear what they had to say? She's feeling very empowered. And speaking to your other expert, too, Ms. Lieberman, she did come in with game on today. She was already ready. She was powered up. You could see it in her stances walking in the door, and she has continued to show that all the way through the trial, or through the closing statements today.
Dr. Judy Ho, your thoughts about the process here. You're at the end of 6 weeks. This was a bitter battle between two exes. It doesn't get more bitter. It doesn't get more personal. It doesn't get more emotional. And now they've got to wait.
Now they've got to wait. And some of this could be helpful because it's hard not to get caught up in the emotion of it, just like you were saying, Vinny. It was very, very personal accounts. It's like they were flies on the walls of these people's personal lives. And so sometimes a break can actually be more helpful because you've got these jury instructions. You have to try to apply logic to the best of your ability, try to be fair. So I think that might actually help in some ways with that. But also, jurors will have their own experiences. And I know that part of the jury selection was supposed to try to weed out people who might already be biased one way or another towards a certain person's position. But everybody still has experiences. We all know people who have been through domestic abuse in some way, if it's not even somebody who might have been in the jury right now. And so they're going to be reacting still from that personal level. And I think that it's going to be very interesting in the jury room. I've seen people talk to people where they've gotten into huge arguments with other members of the jury, and really what it comes down to is their own personal experience coming into play when they're trying to deliberate and make a sound decision with all of that pressure, and with this, the entire nation watching you.
Yeah, I want to bring Chanley Painter back into the conversation. She's here with me outside the courthouse. And Chanley, the question I have for you is, from the beginning to the end here, did you see a difference in the way Johnny Depp was comporting himself and Amber Heard from 6 weeks ago to where we ended up today?
The first week Johnny Depp had his hair down. I think it made a statement when he pulled his hair back. You can see his face. The jury could see his face at table. And that really did help, I think, his swagger, if you will. I know you have swagger as well, Vinny. But when he walks into the courtroom, when he sits there at counsel table, he's always reacting and responding, and I think that's been consistent. But definitely Amber Heard has gone on this emotional roller coaster ride inside the courtroom. One time she seemed on the verge of tears. At other times she's kind of smirking. Watched her earlier as she kind of celebrates a moment. So more consistency on JD's side.
That's true. That's so true, because there definitely was more of a roller coaster. Johnny Depp never really got emotional on the stand. He was kind of stayed. There were times where he got a little angry, though.
Yes.
With Mr. Rottenborn, of course.
Rottenborn.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk about this case is coming to a conclusion, but who has more on the line? Who has more to lose? Not to win, but who has more to lose if this verdict doesn't go their way? We are live in Fairfax County, Virginia. Wow, what a day.
This case, at least for Mr. Depp, has never been about money. This case for Mr. Depp has never been about money, nor is it about punishing Ms. Heard. It is about Mr. Depp's reputation and freeing him from the prison in which he has lived for the last 6 years, and it's 6 years to the day.
Mark that down, folks. That'll be the first time in history that a plaintiff's attorney, someone representing a plaintiff in a civil case, said, this case is not about money. But I don't think it was for Johnny Depp, right? I think he's still got a lot of money, and he'll still be making more money from this point forward. But anyhow, that was Ben Chu explaining Johnny Depp and what this was about for him. Here's Amber Heard in her own words.
I have the right to tell my story. I have the right to say what happened to me. I have the right to my voice and my name. He took it long enough. I have a right as an American to talk about what happened to me, to own my story and my truth. I have that right. I hope to get my voice back.
Okay, so as we sit here now with the jury getting ready to make a decision, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. But who has more to lose? Let's bring back in my guests, Dr. Judy Ho, Dr. Carol Lieberman, and Susan Constantine. Dr. Carol Lieberman, who do you think has more to lose here?
I think Johnny Depp has more to lose because he had more in the first place. You know, what he had already achieved, and also what she took away, what all of this, her defamation took away from him. So he has more to lose on a personal and a professional level. Now, you know, it's so interesting that they have brought in this whole, which seems to me like a Hail Mary. But maybe that's because I've already long ago decided in favor of Johnny Depp. But they're bringing in this whole First Amendment thing, you know, that to get the jury to think, even if, you know, Ben Rottenborn said, Amber wins even if there's no proof of abuse because of the First Amendment. Well, that's not true. And so they're now changing it into, of course, everybody, you know, on the jury is going to want to, we have to believe in the First Amendment. But the First Amendment has some exceptions to it, like you can't yell fire in the middle of a theater. And obviously there is such a thing as defamation, or they wouldn't be at this trial. So that is just a way of trying to get around the fact that there was no proof that Amber could show.
Dr. Judy Ho, who do you think has more to lose here as this jury continues their deliberations next week?
I do think that Johnny has more to lose. And I think that part of it is because there is already so much in terms of misconceptions that I believe some of the testimonies or even other people's opinions about what's been going on in this case has really brought about people who are suffering from substance abuse issues. Not everybody who's a substance abuser is also somebody who abuses other people or is involved in domestic violence disputes. Certainly when somebody is under the influence of substances, they tend to have more impulsiveness, and sometimes these things can happen. But I feel like at certain points of this deliberation, in terms of this trial, there has been statements that were made that almost try to make the two things one and the same. And I think that if people believe in that, if there's anybody out there who believes in that, forget the jury, just the court of public opinion, I think that then Johnny's going to have a lot more to lose, right? I don't think that they've talked a lot about, for example, somebody who suffers from substance abuse being able to recover, being able to be responsible citizens. They really didn't paint that picture. They're painting this picture of he's a substance abuser and boom, he also abuses Amber. These are one and the same. He's not to be trusted. He's not a credible person. I feel like it's sort of like a character assassination based around an illness that he may have.
Mm-hmm.
Susan Constantine, who was looking like they had more to lose? Who looked like they were more anxious in this moment as the jury now has the case?
Amber looks like, I mean, the reason why I say that is because her performance and so much of her expressions, the words and how she phrases it, all of that is so hyper elevated So she's really working hard to kind of prove herself, to try to convince people, and it's coming off so artificial, she doesn't appear authentic, and also deceptive. So when a person gets to this place where they don't feel like they're believed, they hype it up. They try to animate it that much more because they try to convince. And I think that Johnny, he's got that stable, able, he doesn't really get flinched too much, which I think he appears much more grounded. He does have a strong sense of sadness. I do see that kind of depleting in his face as it's gotten closer. I think he's just done. I can see it really taking an emotional toll on him.
Susan Constantine, Dr. Carol Lieberman, Dr. Judy Ho, thank you all so much. Appreciate your time, your expertise, and I'm sure we'll speak next week as this jury continues their deliberations. Folks, I want to take a look at a clip from one of the movies that Johnny Depp made years ago, back in the 90s, because from my perspective, I've been thinking more about it, and I think it has more significance than you might think. The name of the movie, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
There is no way of explaining the terror I felt. I was pouring sweat. My blood is too thick for Nevada. I've never been able to properly explain myself in this climate. Okay. Be quiet. Be calm. Name? Frank? And press affiliation. Nothing else.
It was a fascinating movie, but that character, the way he speaks, the drugs, what's the connection to Johnny Depp in real life? And don't forget that we had some testimony about this movie during the trial. It came from one of the other people who was in it. Take a listen.
Were you, did you act in any film, stage, or TV productions with Mr. Depp?
Yes, I was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Ellen Barkin, ladies and gentlemen, Ellen Barkin. Okay, so let's bring in our next guest, someone who knows Johnny Depp, the executive producer of that movie, who was on the set of that movie, Robert Vale, back with us tonight, joining us from Fairbanks, Alaska. Robert, great to see you. Here's a question I've been dying to ask you, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the character in that movie, it's almost as if I feel, I don't know why, that Johnny almost took on that character in the way he's lived his life. From the testimony and everything that we've heard, the way the character spoke, the use of the drugs, and the connection to Hunter S. Thompson. Your thoughts on all of that?
Well, it's good to be here, Vinny. Thank you. Good to see you again. Before he took on the role, Bill Murray, who did another great adaptation playing Hunter, told Johnny that once you get him in your bloodstream, you'll never get him out. And Johnny did a lot of research for this film, spent a lot of time with Hunter previous to the film, getting ready for it, and then on the set. And it had an effect on him. I think Hunter has an effect on anyone who spends any amount of time with him. I know if you read some of my texts, they make some of Johnny's look like kindergarten material. But and that's from what I learned from Hunter and from comedian Buddy Hackett, that it may be rude, but it's comedic and it's venting. It's not for public consummation, unfortunately, but that's what happened here. He really delved into the role. I don't think that it affected him outside of the role, other than his interesting texts, which I think are funny only because I know that he's not capable of doing that stuff. If they were from Charles Manson, that's another, he's capable of that. But Johnny wouldn't hurt a fly. seems to take out, he doesn't seem, I know, he takes out his anger on things. And if they're not his things, he pays for them out of his own pocket. He will not hit anybody. And I don't believe he touched her. I do have some thoughts on the immaculate laceration, but I think that when you have
Robert, this is what we have to do.
Oh, sorry,
Robert.
Yeah, sure.
I'm up against the clock. It's Friday night, but we're going to be covering this next week. Can you join us again next week? I want to spend a lot more time with you and carve it out next week. Can you do it?
Look forward to it. I'll see you on Wednesday. I think it's set.
Fantastic. Great. Robert, appreciate your time tonight. We're just a little tight on time. When we come back, we'll get some final words here from Chanley Painter, some of the things that, the jury didn't see.
JoinCalibrate.com.
Journey. I am an insane person and not so fair-headed after too much of the drink. Weed, pills, fine. Booze, my capacity is too large and I won't stop. Ugly and sad. Oh, how I love it.
There appears to be an Amber Alert, but I think we're okay. People are getting it, I guess, on their phones that haven't silenced that.
Oh, okay, Your Honor.
Okay.
TikTok's going to have some fun with that, right? An Amber Alert in the courtroom. But I don't think it was an actual Amber Alert. Chanley Painter's still with me. Chanley, that was actually, was that for a weather alert?
That was a weather alert. Soon after, we could hear the thunder. It was storming outside, Vinny, but I did think it started going off.
Yeah.
Really, someone's
putting an Amber
Alert out.
in the middle of closing
A lot of the
arguments.
signs outside the courthouse will say Amber Alert, caution, Amber Alert.
Right. It's uncanny. But anyhow, worked right through it in closing arguments. Hey, at the end of the day, I had my phone with me, which is also a camera. I don't know if you have one of these camera phones. And rock star moment as Ben Chu exiting the courtroom. The crowd goes nuts for him. Everyone wants to get a picture. They want a piece of him. Johnny Depp had already left, but the crowd hung out for the lawyers, Chanley, for the lawyers.
Yes, they wait. So what they do is they first gather behind the courthouse where Johnny Depp leaves, and then they rush around to the front so they can catch the rock star attorneys as they depart. We have Ben Chu. They're trying to find him there. But yeah, sometimes the alpacas come out. And
yeah, it was unbelievable. I hadn't seen this, right? Because when I was here weeks ago, this was not happening. But anyway, folks, Chanley Painter, thank you so much for hanging late.
Sure.
Great job inside the courtroom, outside the courthouse, and it'll continue next week. All right, when we come back, we'll bring in our think tank and break down these arguments piece by piece.
Comfort Technology.
In Fairfax County, Virginia, all the evidence is in and the arguments have been made, and now it's time for the jury to speak. Will they find that Johnny Depp's ex, Amber Heard, is a liar who falsely accused him of abuse?
The evidence presented at this trial has shown that Miss Heard is in fact the abuser.
Or will they find Johnny Depp is a liar who abused Amber for years?
The evidence shows she did not commit any of those hoaxes. The evidence shows that she was abused exactly how not only she, but her witnesses supporting her claims say that she was.
Plus, our 13th juror question, what do you think is justice in this case? Fasten your seatbelts. We are live from the courthouse, waiting for a verdict in Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. We're live in Fairfax County, Virginia. Closing arguments today in the courthouse behind me. A big day, a lot at stake. It was 6 weeks of testimony, wild accusations inside that courtroom, a bitter, bitter battle. Criminal cases are tough, right? Because there's a lot at stake. Sometimes it's literally life or death. But this case had a different edge on it. And the edge was that this is personal. You know, when a prosecutor prosecutes a criminal, yeah, they're there to fight for the people of the state. They're there to give a voice to the victim. But in this case, each side, I mean, it's personal. They don't like each other. Johnny hates Amber. Amber hates Johnny. As close as they were and as in love they were at one point, it's so different. And that tension doesn't exist in criminal cases. It just doesn't, but it's inside this courtroom. And today we're closing arguments. Let's take a look, because we're going to break these all down tonight. Let's begin with Johnny Depp's team. Camille Vasquez, the woman who cross-examined Amber Heard, was the first to speak for Johnny Depp.
Exactly 6 years ago today, on May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into court and filed a false report of domestic abuse against her husband of 15 months, Johnny Depp. The scene was a setup. She tipped off the paparazzi so they would be waiting. They knew exactly where she would pause, which side of her face to photograph. And the photos captured what she wanted them to see, the image of a battered woman. There is an abuser in this courtroom, but it is not Mr. Depp. And there is a victim of domestic abuse in this courtroom, but it is not Ms. Heard. She never thought that Mr. Depp would tell you, the jury, and the world that he was the real victim of domestic abuse. She said it in her own words.
You can please tell people that it was a fair fight and see what the jury and judge think. Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, man, I'm a victim too of domestic violence, and yes. I know it's a fair fight. And see how many people believe or side with you.
You heard from Ms. Heard yourselves on multiple audio recordings, admitting to being physically violent with Mr. Depp.
And I watched you lie, and then
I didn't punch you, by the way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, you've been in a lot of fights. You've been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a close.
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not deck you. I was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are you?
What am I supposed to do? Do this? I'm not sitting here about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a baby.
Because you started.
You're such a baby. Grow the Johnny.
You start physical fights?
I did start a physical fight.
Yeah, you did, so I had
because yes, you did. So you did the right thing, the big thing. You know what? You're admirable.
What you didn't hear on a single recording you heard in this case, and there were many played by both parties, is Mr. Depp ever admitting to hitting, punching, or kicking Ms. Heard. You didn't hear it. It doesn't exist. It didn't happen. The mountain of evidence that Mr. Depp abused Ms. Heard is simply not there. What we have is a mountain of unproven allegations that are wild, over the top, and implausible. It was an act of profound cruelty, not just to Mr. Depp, but to true survivors of domestic abuse. For Ms. Heard to hold herself out as a public figure representing domestic abuse. It was false, it was defamatory, and it caused irreparable harm.
Amazing, because this is a defamation case, and for Johnny Depp, it's trying to prove to the jury that I did not abuse Amber Heard. But they've taken it one step further and said not only did he not abuse her, he is the victim of her abuse. And they've got the recordings to back it up. Effective argument. That's what I think. Let's find out what our think tank thinks tonight. Joining us in Los Angeles, California, Deputy Public Defender, L.A. County, Philip Dubé is with us. In San Diego, California, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor Brian Watkins. And in Staten Island, New York, former prosecutor Joan Aluzzi. Welcome. Great to see everyone on this closing argument Friday night. Philip Dubé, let me start with you. What do you think about that for this case? You know, making that argument and then playing the pieces of evidence as you're making the argument that, hey, she's the one admitting to all of this on these recordings.
Yeah, welcome to PowerPoint and the digital age and jury trials, Vinnie. I mean, that's the practical reality of it. They spliced and cut up everything and to fit their narrative, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant because it paints a chronological picture for the jury. I will say the one thing I didn't particularly care for stylistically was in Camille's Part A argument, you know, I felt like I was at a dramatic poetry reading. She had her notes in front of her at the lectern there. And I don't know, I appreciate more of an extemporaneous type of closing as opposed to just somebody reading, you know, Edgar Allan Poe to the jury. But on balance, you know, she hit all the points. And let me tell you, she came back swinging in her B argument, you know, the Part 2 rebuttal argument. And she rebutted every single point that the Heard camp had raised in front of the jury. So it was effective. But make no mistake about it, the Heard team scored big too. I thought Elaine was fantastic. She is very.
Philip, Philip, you're getting ahead. I don't know if it's a cart before the horse or whatever, but we have two segments. Segment 1, we're talking about Johnny Depp's arguments. Segment 2, we'll get to Amber Heard. You're chomping at the bit. I can feel it. Brian Watkins, your thoughts about Camille Vasquez and the use of the recordings, especially the one with Amber Heard saying, go ahead, Johnny, tell the world that you're an abused man.
I thought it was huge. There's nothing more powerful than hearing the testimony from the mouth of the defendant. And that is just huge. No witness that you can put up, because every witness that you put up is somewhat biased. He's your witness. The most unbiased witness that can ever exist is the defendant in a case like this. And you hear it from her own mouth. Therefore, it is undisputed. And if she gets up there and tries to dispute it, she loses all credibility because, hey, Amber, I'm here. I've been here for 6 weeks. I heard it out of your own mouth. Stop it. And she loses all credibility as to anything else that she says. So it was huge.
Let's take a listen to more of the closing arguments now from her partner, Benjamin Chu, here really focusing on the op-ed, which is the focus of the defamation allegation.
Ms. Heard's claim that the op-ed is not about Mr. Depp is just another one of her many, many lies. The title of the op-ed reads, as you can see, quote, Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change, unquote. Below that, Ms. Heard states, quote, then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out, unquote. And below that, Ms. Heard states, quote, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse, unquote. Each of those statements clearly refers to Ms. Heard's allegations against Mr. Depp. And taken collectively, their message and their implication about Mr. Depp is clear, i.e. that Ms. Heard is a survivor of domestic abuse and that Mr. Depp is a perpetrator. Everyone in Hollywood knew, and Hollywood and elsewhere knew exactly what Ms. Heard meant by the words, quote, 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, unquote. That was a clear reference to the day 2 years earlier, on May 27th, 2016. As Ms. Vasquez said, that was 6 years to the day. That's when his life ended. That was 6 years ago to this day, when Ms. Heard, on May 27th, 2016, walked into court with her publicist, Jody Gottlieb, having tipped off TMZ with an alleged mark on her face to accuse Mr. Depp of abuse. As always, Ms. Heard was quite mindful of her image. She was careful to portray herself as the innocent representative of abuse survivors, and by implication, Mr. Depp as the perpetrator of domestic abuse. Now, Ms. Heard has done a lot to try to walk away from the title in particular. That's true to form. She has testified that she didn't write it, and she will argue later that she shouldn't be held liable because she didn't write it. But as the court's instructions, which you heard this morning, make clear, Ms. Heard didn't have to personally write any part of the op-ed for her to defame Mr. Depp through implication in the Washington Post.
Joan Luzzi, I know it's an argument the other side is making, but I think this is such a strong argument that it's like common sense. Yes, she's talking about being abused by Johnny Depp. And I thought that was a very strong way to make that argument. The other part that I thought was really interesting in what Ben Chu just said is that image of her going to the courthouse with her publicist. To me, that changes the nature, and I know she's a celebrity, and I know Johnny Depp is a celebrity, and my guess is when Johnny Depp goes to the courthouse, he'll probably bring his publicist with him as well. But for a jury to hear that someone's going to court to get protection, and they bring their publicist?
I agree that it's optically, it's a very, very bad look. I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that she was talking about Johnny Depp and that they have admitted such. I don't know why Mr. Chu said that they were going to argue that these weren't her words. They were her words. She admitted they were her words, even if somebody else actually penned the article. However, they did make the argument, which they had to make, which is this. You have to take her in whole as a liar, because everybody in that courtroom knows the same thing. They're both lying and they're both telling the truth. So the Depp side says, you know what? No matter what happened, if you find her lying about one thing, label her a liar and completely disregard her. And the Depp and the Heard camp says, you know what? If you find he has abused her even one time, this case is specious and you have to throw it out. So they're both sort of, I think, have a coming of understanding about what has happened in that courtroom over the last month or so, which is both sides have won, both sides have failed. And she is not always credible and neither is he. So both sides are sort of playing, their strengths as well as weaknesses.
Philip, do you think this jury will look at it, and I think this is what Johnny Depp's team needs, which is exactly what Joan is saying, is just make this about, do you believe her, right? Do you believe him? Do you believe her? Who do you believe more? Just make it into that literal he said, she said, and whichever, and if you could believe Johnny just a little bit more, then he wins. And I think that's what they were trying to do in the way they couched their arguments. And I think that's their only road to victory in a defamation case.
Not quite. Don't ever forget Anti-SLAPP. Remember, they both have a constitutional right to air their dirty laundry, even if it's false, just to get their truth out there. Whether or not, the public believes it, their fan base believes it, they still have a First Amendment right, at least in the Commonwealth of Virginia, to put on that defense. It's different in other jurisdictions. And all they have to show is that this is a matter of public concern, that the people making the statements are in the limelight, if you will, and that it could open up a conversation and result in a debate. And it doesn't really matter what your view is on the subject, as long as it encourages discussion. And if it does that, at least in the jury room, that's a defense. So why not? Look, they put on evidence. Heard testified that she wanted to get her truth out there. She intimated by saying it is her right to put her story out there, even though she has been vilified as the she-devil hellcat in the news and on TikTok and social media. She still has a God-given right to state her story. And by the way, so does Johnny Depp. Even if you don't believe them, or even if you believe them somewhat, or even if you believe one more than the other, the First Amendment trumps.
We shall see. Everyone's trying to kill our First Amendment in this country, especially those big tech companies. Another story for another day, though. When we come back, our think tank stays with us, and we'll talk about Amber Heard's team and their arguments today. Both sides doing a great job.
Download the free app now.
If Amber was abused by Mr. Depp even one time, then she wins. One time.
Another interesting part of that argument is Amber Heard's team is defining abuse differently than Johnny Depp's team. I mean, Amber Heard's team is defining abuse as physical, emotional, verbal, or sexual. Johnny Depp's team, clearly physical, sexual abuse. That's what we're talking about here. Will be interesting to see how the jury deals with that because the two sides definitely not agreeing. Let's take a look at more of the closing argument from Benjamin Rottenborn, Johnny Depp's nemesis. And here, as Philip Dubé previewed for us, it's all about the First Amendment.
There's no hidden meaning here, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't a hit piece on Johnny Depp. This isn't a hit piece on Johnny Depp. And you can end here. You can end there by saying the statements that she wrote were not false and the First Amendment protects them. You heard about how the first incidents of violence took place in 2012 when Ms. Heard asked Johnny about his tattoo that used to say Winona forever and had been changed to say Wino forever. And she laughed. And she said, and he slapped me across the face. She thought it was a joke, and then he did it 2 more times. And then he said, I thought I put the monster away, and I've done it before. Mr. Depp knows that he can turn into a monster. He knows that. He knows that. He got up here on the stand and tried to deny that to you. Talk about lack of accountability. Let's see the monster. Let's see the monster in the flesh.
What happened? What happened? Nothing happened this morning, you know that?
Were you in here?
No.
So then nothing happened to you this morning?
Yeah, you're right. I just woke up and you were so sweet and nice. We were not even fighting this morning. All I did was say sorry.
Did something happen to you this morning? I don't think so.
Again, in order to find for Mr. Depp, you would have to find that for his defamation claim, every single thing that ever happened between them that could constitute abuse, Amber was the abuser. Every single time. You'd have to believe the unbelievable. You all are smarter than that. But by the time that Amber wrote the op-ed, Mr. Depp already had had another opportunity to tell his story. He filed a case in the UK against the Sun for calling him a wife beater. And in that case, he had many of the same witnesses. He was on the stand for parts of 5 days, and he got to tell the fact finder in the UK whatever he wanted. Now, it's not the same testimony he told here, because you heard me impeach him about 13 times with this testimony from the UK. But he's had his chances. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to tell Mr. Depp that this was his last chance. Tell him to move on with his life. Tell him to let Amber move on with hers. Stand up for the freedom of speech. Stand up for the First Amendment. This trial is about so much more than Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. It's about the freedom of speech. Stand up for it, protect it, and reject Mr. Depp's claims against Amber.
The Mega Pint video. By the way, someone came by, dropped this off. I did not get this myself. But that Mega Pint video, is that abuse? Is that and Ben Rottenberg used that moment inside the courtroom. Let's bring back in our think tank. Jonah Luzzi, let me ask you, that mega pint video that everyone's talking about, is that in and of itself, in your eyes, enough to prove abuse, that moment?
Well, you know what, Vinny? I'm sure everyone agree that it was abusive behavior. Is it abuse in the classic sense when you say, I am an abused spouse or what have you? It would have to be a pattern of things just like that that would at some point mount one on top of each other to actually say you're an abusive, emotionally, psychologically, abusive relationship. But what's interesting is that he also had freedom of speech. If you remember, he's writing, he's not only doing this stuff, talking to her that way, but he's like penning these texts to his friends that are in and of themselves patently violent in thought. They really are. I was kind of hoping that one of her lawyers would have said, look, is it such a stretch to believe that the author of these texts also hit her? Like, even one time? Is that such a stretch to believe when he is like saying the most diabolical things, murdering her, poisoning her, burying her? Who speaks like that about their spouse or their loved one? That's somebody who has crossed the threshold from normal, productive and loving behavior to abusive behavior.
Brian Watkins, do you think that just one time abuse argument works here if this jury believes that Amber Heard embellished, added to, exaggerated what was happening?
That is going to be the first jury question that comes back to the judge and says, hey, how many of these acts do we have to believe to label someone an abuser? Amber Heard's trial team, I think they shot themselves in the foot. First of all, by trying to insinuate that they weren't talking about Johnny Depp. If that's the case, why do you put on 6 weeks of evidence talking about what Johnny Depp did? Put on the evidence of the other boyfriend that you were talking about. And maybe you were in an abusive relationship, and maybe all that things in the article were true about that other guy. But she didn't do that, and their closing argument didn't mesh with the evidence that they presented. They didn't present evidence of, oh, he was angry a lot, and he would yell a lot and raise his voice a lot, and I thought that was abuse. That's not what she said. She said he pretty much raped me with a bottle, beat me down, almost killed my sister by throwing her down the stairs. I mean, she set the bar so high for herself that she's not going to be able to meet it, because you got to understand, jurors are going to use common sense. They've all been in relationships. There's times where you yell, you fight, things may get thrown, and they're not going to label themselves as abusers for having been in a situation like that. So the one time that, oh, I believe Johnny raised his voice once or twice, therefore he's an abuser, therefore she wins, that's a long shot, and it's never going to work. I think her trial team really shot themselves in the foot.
Philip Dubé, why don't you take a listen to Elaine Bredehoff here in her closing argument, because another one of the themes from the defense is that this lawsuit, this trial, is evidence of Johnny Depp continuing to abuse Amber Heard. Let's watch.
He's going after Amber for nothing because he wants to put her through this again, the third time. So we're fighting back, and that's the counterclaim. She finally has said enough, enough. And we're asking you to finally hold this man responsible. He has never accepted responsibility for anything in his life. You've heard it this whole time. He hasn't admitted to anything. He's blamed everybody in the world, his agent, his manager, his lawyer, Amber, his friends, everybody. But he's never accepted responsibility for a thing he's done in his life. But we're asking you to accept, to make him accept responsibility, to hold him legally responsible for his actions, and to fully and fairly compensate Amber for what he has done by creating this concept of a hoax for the defamation that he has committed, that you have heard so much about, that just took wildfire and went off into negative media and has made Amber's life pure hell up to this day.
Philip Dubé, we can't forget there's a counterclaim. Is the counterclaim that they have stronger or weaker than the claim Johnny Depp has?
Oh, it's much weaker. Come on, let's be honest here. Do you think most people ever even heard of Amber Heard before this trial? Yeah, I mean, she may have had her little fan base out there, and she was probably, a gradually shining star out there. But the practical reality of it is most cinephiles probably didn't even know who she was. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean she didn't lose money. Of course she did. Listen, nobody wants to go against Johnny Depp. And, let's face it, he brings in the box office sales, and anybody who could step on the toes of Johnny Depp could affect the bottom line. Now, having said that, I'm not sure that I agree with Elaine's argument on this First Amendment issue here. In this context, in other words, enough is enough. Johnny Depp, under the First Amendment, separate and apart from freedom of speech, also has the right to petition the government to redress grievances, meaning the courts. His first lawsuit in the UK was not against Amber. She was just a witness. It was against the newspaper. So the newspaper had a full and fair hearing and prevailed under that judge, Andrew Nichol. But this is the first time that Amber Heard has actually been dragged in as a party. And she used this then to file her cross complaint, which she can do. But she in no way proved that she lost $100 million. No way. She didn't bring in anybody to say that a contract got nixed, that a cosmetic line endorsement got nixed, that a fashion line got nixed. Nothing. It's all speculative.
Our guest staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at more of what happened inside the courtroom, and we're going to take you on the docket. Don't go anywhere.
like him.
Ms. Heard took pictures all the time. Pictures of Mr. Depp sleeping, pictures of cocaine, pictures of property damage, pictures of herself. And as an actress, she was photographed all the time. Where are the pictures of the horrific injuries Ms. Heard describes? Ms. Heard also took audio recordings and videos frequently. Where are the videos of Mr. Depp attacking her? Where are the audio recordings of Mr. Depp admitting to or apologizing for physical abuse? There are none.
Some great points being made by Camille Vasquez during her closing arguments. I want to take a moment right now to tell you about another big trial that we are tracking here at Court TV out of Florida, the Killer Clown trial. Here's a preview.
30 years ago, a person dressed as a clown, holding flowers and balloons, rang the doorbell at Marlene Warren's home. But when Marlene answered, the clown shot her to death.
Advanced DNA testing led authorities to Sheila Keene Warren. The defendant ended up marrying the victim's husband.
It's like a Lifetime movie plot.
This is going to be a riveting case.
The Killer Clown murder trial. Live coverage coming soon on Court TV.
And take a look, folks. Florida versus Sheila Keene Warren, the Killer Clown trial. We have a status conference on June 14th, and then we should get a new trial date for that case. A long time in the making. Right now, I want to go to Court TV crime and justice reporter Matt Johnson, who's in the studio, taking a look tonight at some of the reaction from celebrities to what's happening here in Fairfax County, Virginia, an area they probably usually don't pay much attention to out in Hollywood.
They are right now. Nice to see you, Vinny. Good evening to you. So for the past 6 weeks, the celebrity buzz has been building around the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Some celebs taking sides right there in the courtroom, like Kate Moss and Ellen Barkin.
Ms. Moss, do you know Johnny Depp?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Mr. Depp?
I had a relationship with him.
In the course of your career acting in theater, television, movies, etc., did you come to meet a person by the name of Johnny Depp?
Yes.
Can you specify in time, Ms. Barkin, when you met him?
I would say 1990.
So others took their case to the court of public opinion. Howard Stern and Joe Rogan were quick to talk about the case, taking sides on their radio shows.
You know, on the narcissism scale, I think Johnny Depp is a huge narcissist. And what I mean by that is he figured, I'll put this on TV. And because I'm so persuasive and I'm so smart and I'm such a wonderful guy,
I'm a great actor. I can act my way through anything. Yeah.
Oh, right. And I'll play you some clips from the Johnny Depp trial. If he isn't acting, I mean, but he's so overacting.
If he gets $50 million in a settlement, the only good thing is everybody knows now. And this is a good thing. And this is one of the reasons why it's good that he did this. Everyone knows now, like, there's something wrong with her.
Yeah.
Like, there's something wrong.
Right.
Like, there's some sort of, like, mental issue.
Now on Twitter, Ricki Lake, who co-starred with Johnny Depp in Cry Baby, that was the movie, she tweeted that she adored working with him and said that he was kind, funny, inclusive, and a joy to be around. Meanwhile, some celebs got backlash for trying to make light of the case. One of them, Drew Barrymore, made a public apology after making a joke on her talk show, saying it was crazy that the stars were sharing such private information publicly, calling it, quote, a 7-layer dip of insanity. Shortly after, she posted this on the Instagram.
Hi, it has come to my attention that I have offended people with making light of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And for that, I just want to deeply apologize and appreciate everyone who spoke out because this can be a teachable moment for me.
Probably for many. Now, with the trial in recess over the long holiday weekend, plenty of time, Vinnie, for more stars to post opinions, maybe after a mega Politan themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what's interesting? I mean, if Drew Barrymore is offending people, I mean, have any of those people been on TikTok? Have any of them? I mean, I'm really baffled by that because this is playing, you know, different ways across the globe and across different platforms. And I'm amazed that Drew Barrymore had to apologize for commenting on this because everyone's making different types of comments, seeing it every day. But I guess that's the world we live in now.
World we live in, and I think it also plays into their particular fan base. You know, Drew Barrymore probably has a different fan base than Howard Stern.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. That's probably very true, by the way. Matt Johnson, great to see you, my friend.
Of course.
When we come back, we heard from the celebrities. It's time to hear from you, the 13th juror. What do you think justice is in this case? Your verdict next.
And I've been so looking forward to being able to actually explain to you, as the judge read all the instructions to you this morning, and I know it was a lot, but we've been looking forward to being able to explain to you what you're here to decide. Because I imagine for some of the case, it's been kind of unclear. What are you being asked to decide? These are the things that you have to find, and you have to answer yes. As Mr. Chu said, you have to answer yes to all of them in order to find in favor of Mr. Depp. So you have to find that the statement was about Mr. Depp, and you can decide that in the context of the article. And I'll get to the arguments that Mr. Depp raises on that in a minute. You also have to find that the statement is false. And we're going to look at the statements here. We're going to look at each of the three statements. And in order to win his claim, Mr. Depp has to prove every single element. And there's a concept in the jury instructions that you really didn't hear from Mr. Depp's side this morning, but you've all heard it, I'm sure, outside the courtroom, which is burden of proof. It is Mr. Depp's burden to prove each and every one of these elements.
$50 instantly.
She came into this courtroom prepared to give the performance of her life, and she gave it. Ms. Heard's acting coach, Christina Sexton, testified that Ms. Heard has difficulty crying when she is acting. You saw it. Ms. Heard sobbing without tears, while spinning elaborate, exaggerated, fantastical accounts of abuse and everything going on in her mind almost a decade prior while enduring that abuse. It was a performance.
Now, the suggestion that Amber's abuse allegations are a hoax is vicious and vile. Mr. Depp can say whatever he wants now, but he can't change the evidence that you've seen at the trial. And the evidence shows that Ms. Heard did not commit abuse hoaxes, not about sexual violence, not about May 21st, 2016, and certainly not about Mr. Depp and Mr. Waldman's catch-all, all-purpose statement that Ms. Heard's abuse hoax, which suggests that every one of her allegations are false, that that's coming to an end. The evidence shows she did not commit any of those hoaxes. The evidence shows that she was abused exactly how not only she, but her witnesses supporting her claims say that she was, and their witnesses even, who claim that Mr. Depp abused her.
Abusing someone or falsely accusing someone of abusing someone. Both are really, really bad. Bad behavior. So, posted on social media today as we wait for the jury to make up their mind, asking you, what is justice in this case? What do you think justice is? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day from Joni, who says, justice would be the jury saying, you are both lying, toxic, manipulative, crazy millionaires, and neither of you gets a dime from the other. Wow. Brian Watkins, is that the most likely verdict here, do you think?
I think it is very likely. It's a very likely verdict because they both were exaggerating, I believe. But the problem is that Amber Heard, her evidence that she presented did not mesh with their closing arguments, saying that it wasn't about Johnny Depp. Yet you put on a bunch of evidence about Johnny Depp, not about the other boyfriend. He never takes responsibility, but he did. He got up there and he says, I've abused myself, I drink, I do all these things. And so it's a tough one. I think Johnny Depp wins this one, to be honest with you.
Jonna tonight, I feel that justice for Johnny Depp can happen if they rule in his favor, even if no money is awarded. He's already won in the court of public opinion, but the verdict would guarantee that he can resume his career and retain his reputation. Joan Aluzzi, is court the place you go to get your reputation back?
No, I think that Johnny Depp was ill-advised taking this case. There is no way he's proving that this piece penned by Amber Heard or penned for Amber Heard was done with actual malice. That's where he fails. Even if the jury buys that she's manipulating or she's exaggerating, she exaggerated in the article, even if it was a puff piece to advance her career, she did not do it with actual malice. This case, however, does seem as though Johnny's doing it just to mess up her life, just to air her dirty laundry in public, and that to me is malice, but she fails on damages. Never proved that that what he has said about her has in any way truly affected her otherwise mediocre career.
Jessica tonight, question for the legal eagles. Can the jury say Johnny wins this case, but award a smaller amount? Oh, like $7 million, the amount of the divorce settlement. Philip Dubé, what do you say?
Sure. I mean, they can find that even though, the Heard camp took Johnny Depp off camera behind the red carpet and showed he's not exactly the pillar of society, in fact, showed escalating behavior that could, in fact, prove domestic abuse, that he nonetheless was a victim of this hoax, if you will, abuse hoax, and give him, in the broader scheme of the Johnny Depp world, $7 million is chump change, It's bus fare for Johnny Depp. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they give him sort of a token judgment, frankly. Or I could see the jury saying, a pox on both your houses, and give them both a big fat 0.
Shelley tonight, Amber lied about the op-ed being about Johnny, but then admitted to it on her rebuttal cross. Justice is for Johnny because Amber had malice to destroy Johnny with her lies. Brian Watkins, as we sit here tonight, before the jury has spoken, who right now has suffered more damage?
Well, Johnny's technically did because he can point to the fact that he was labeled by newspapers and tabloids as an abuser. And that's what the damage is. Now, you talk about freedom of speech. A person does not have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater, and you don't have the right to tell lies about someone when you know that's going to directly damage their reputation in their career. Clearly, Amber knew that, and she did it anyway, and she loses credibility when she says, well, I was hurt $100 million worth. That, again, is an exaggeration that she put on no evidence to support that. And so when you exaggerate like that, I got to take all your statements as lies and exaggerations. But Johnny did get hurt. And I think the jury could award less than $50 million because I don't think Amber has $50 million. But all he wants is the win in public opinion, the win in the public opinion anyway. So I think he came out all right.
Karen, tonight, I don't think there's any winner in domestic violence. It's a he said, she said. Justice for both is to just move on with their lives. We have about 10 seconds here. Jonah Luzzi, do you think they walk away at the end of all this and it's over for them, or will this continue to linger somehow, some way?
This has caught the public's attention in such a huge way, and it's like, watching a car wreck. So I think they both lose no matter what the verdict is here, honestly. There's no such thing as a perfect victim. There's no such thing as a completely, innocent spouse when it comes to this sort of abuse.
Yep. We're out of time. I'm way short on time. My apologies to you, Jonah Luzzi, but thank you so much, Philip Dubé, Brian Watkins. Thanks on this Friday night. We'll see you again real soon. Before we go, I have a picture I need to show you. This is Keon's champion, missing since May 1st out of Richmond, Virginia. If you see her, please call 911 or 1-800-THE-LOST. Have a great weekend, and please don't forget to hug the kids.
privates, and beyond.
You must consider and decide this case fairly and impartially. You are to perform this duty without bias or prejudice as to any party.
On May 27th, 2016, Ms. Heard walked into a courthouse in Los Angeles, California to get a no-notice ex parte restraining order against Mr. Depp. And in doing so, ruined his life. Exactly 6 years later, we ask you to give Mr. Depp his life back.
He was canceled because Ms. Heard falsely accused him of domestic violence and sexual violence on the pages of the Washington Post. Now, she didn't mention his name. She didn't have to.